Now you all know that I love my dessert, so I thought I'd show you New Zealand's national dish, which is a pavlova, named after a ballerina. Norway's done with passion fruit. I'm going to do a passion fruit and raspberry one, so I'm going to do it like a raspberry ripple in between. Now what we need to do first of all is make our meringue. There's loads of different ways of making a meringue, but fundamentally the recipe stays exactly the same. That's always the weight of sugar to eggs. And what I've got in here is 6 medium eggs, which I need to break these and put the whites in a big bowl. Now whenever you're making the meringue, make sure the bowl is very clean. It needs to be clean of grease particularly, and water. So you need to make sure that it's very clean. And always use a glass bowl for this one, it's probably easier. But break the eggs in there. Some people say they use fresh eggs, some people use frozen egg whites. Again, it's personal preference. I actually think it's better with the fresh ones, but if you want to use the frozen egg whites, it's fine. So we pop the egg yolks in there. And then I've got some sugar. So there's 150 grams of egg whites in here. It's double the quantity in sugar. That's 300 grams of sugar. And I'm going to whisk this up. Now this machine's got 5 main speeds and then a turbo speed with it. But what I've done is design it so the beaters actually follow the shape of the bowl. It's quite important. Often with mixing machines like this, the beaters are the wrong way around and you end up going around the bowl and it makes a hell of a racket. If you just follow the bowl all the way around, the actual beaters follows the shape of it. Quite important when you get machines like this that it's nicely balanced as well. It should feel comfortable in your hand, so it doesn't slip out your hand mainly. So as your egg whites start to foam up, you can just take a pinch of sugar and add it to it. You want to make sure the egg whites are really firm before we add our sugar to it. And this is what I call the cold meringue. So this is adding the sugar cold. You can do what we call an Italian meringue or boil meringue, where you boil the sugar and add it to the whipped egg whites. Or there's a hot meringue where you take the same amount of sugar, warm it in the oven. But it's entirely up to you which one you use. But for pavlova, I think this one works probably the best. You can see now you've got them nicely firmly whipped. Now at this point you take your sugar. Now traditionally, particularly when I was at college, you would be taught to pop this in 3 separate pieces, folding the remaining third in by hand. But with this thing, you don't need to do that. Keep it nice and high, and then add the sugar. And it should drop down a gear as the mixture starts to get a little bit thicker. I can actually hear it starting to get thicker, the machine's working a little bit more. Throw in the remaining sugar. And that's your pavlova, or rather your meringue. Very simple. Just remove the beaters, these go in the dishwasher. And then what we can do now is grab our corn flour. Now, you can either add corn flour or white wine vinegar. If you want a sticky meringue in the middle, that chewy meringue, you get that either using corn flour or white wine vinegar, or a mixture of them both. But corn flour works really good. So about a tablespoon of corn flour. Just stir this together. So you combine all that corn flour in. Now you can either pipe this out, which would be the normal way. Alternatively, you can just pop it straight onto your tray. Now, I'm using one of these little non-stick mats. The best advice is just to take a little bit of your meringue and put a little bit on the tray. Because if you're using a convection oven, what will happen is, because the meringue is so light, the fan of the oven will actually blow the meringues all around the oven. So just to stick the paper onto the tray, and we just pour that onto your mat. and then just swirl this around. It's entirely up to you how big you want to do it. You can do individual ones, it's up to you. But just keep it nice and straightforward, nice and simple. We'll just leave it at that. Now set the oven for this quite low, because it needs to be quite low. It needs to be cooked without colour. So 110 degrees Fahrenheit, that's about sort of 60 degrees centigrade. Gas mark, even on about half, almost just on. Pop it in the oven, leave it in the oven then for about 3 to 4 hours. Alternatively, what you can do is heat the oven up to about the same temperature, leave it for about an hour and then switch it off, and it will continue to cook throughout the night, even though the oven's switched off. Now to finish off our pavlova, which is cooked, we're going to fill this with some cream. Now if you wanted to make this in advance, the best idea is to literally coat this in chocolate, either dark chocolate or white chocolate first of all. It's a barrier between the meringue and the cream to stop it from going too soggy. So if you wanted to prepare it a good couple of hours beforehand, then I would advise you put chocolate on it as well. So what we're going to do now is whisk up our cream. Now you can tell when this machine's ready to use, there's a little green sticker on there. When it changes colour from red to green, that means the beaters are in and attached properly. I'm going to whip up my double cream for this. A decent amount of double cream. But then at the same time, I'm going to prepare my passion fruit, which I'm going to just cut in half. If you can't find fresh passion fruit, actually use passion fruit juice, which is fine, or even orange juice in here would work really well. Give it a quick mix. You don't want the cream too thick. As it starts to thicken up, then we can add our passion fruit now. You want about sort of 3 or 4 of these. Just put them straight in. The juice, the seeds, the lot. They can go straight in. Keep whisking it nice and slowly now. As it starts to come together. It's much more controllable with a lot of speed. So you can actually start to mix them all together. And when you get the cream just slightly thick, at that point we can add a few of our raspberries, and this is where we're going to get the raspberry ripple sort of effect. Even with the beaters on, if I mix this together, I'll actually break up the raspberries and actually cause the mixture to go almost like pinky in colour. That's it. Pop the beaters out. And grabbing your cream, you can just put a small amount on over the top. But this is how pavlova should be, indulgent food. So you just put the cream all over like that. Let's face it, who doesn't like meringue and cream? But even better is when you can get a good pile of fresh raspberries over the top. You just sprinkle those on any old how. Over the top. Again, be quite generous with the fruit. You don't want to be too stingy. You've been generous with the cream, everything else. Again, it's rich, indulgent cooking. But then just to finish this off, grab a little bit more passion fruit and just squeeze those over the top. We just grab some passion fruit juice. And that, I tell you, is a winner at any dinner party. A classic raspberry and passion fruit pavlova.